Hi guys, in this video I'll be sharing a few supernatural experiences that I've had this year. So the first experience that I would like to share is I was at home one day and I just had a random thought about some boy who used to live in my neighborhood when I was 12 years old. And I actually haven't seen him since I was 12. The memory the thought that came in like as a memory, and I wasn't even actively thinking about him, but had received the thought of one day when me and my friend had went to his house to see if he was going to come outside and play. And while we were there, I noticed that there was a portrait of my two younger sisters on his living room wall. And I was really surprised because I didn't even know that they knew each other. And these are my two younger sisters from my father's side. But that day I had found out that the boy's mom and my younger sister's mom were best friends, which is why he had a picture of my younger sisters on his wall. The thought randomly came and it quickly went as well. So after that day, I wasn't thinking about that situation at all. And about a week and a half later, I ended up receiving a random text message from the boy who I just mentioned. Well, he's a man now, but the person who I had that random thought about, I ended up receiving a random text message from him. Now, when I first received the message, I was so confused because I knew the name, but I didn't initially think it was him simply because I've not talked to him in over 20 years. And I didn't understand how he would have gotten my number and things like that. So I was just confused at first, but then I'm like, okay, well, maybe it must be him. So it was him, and he was just reaching out to me because he had just moved to Georgia and I used to live there. And he was basically advertising himself because he's a fitness trainer. And also he was checking to see how I was doing. So that was really odd to me, and it caught me by surprise because I'm like, I had just received that random thought about him like a week prior, and then here he is 20 years later texting me. And I just thought that was pretty mind-boggling. But anyway, the next thing that happened was, for those of you who don't know, I do have some psychic medium abilities. And one day, some guy who my older sister used to go to school with, his brother had passed away some years ago. And one morning around like 5 a.m., his brother had woke me up out of my sleep. And since I've learned to set boundaries with spirits, I do not take any messages when I'm not in a space to take messages. And during my sleep, I am not taking any messages. So when I woke up and I saw him, I went back to sleep because I was not in a space to be receptive to any messages. So that day went by, and 2 days later, I'm at Target by my house, and I'm walking to the checkout, and at the other end of the store that I'm walking towards, I see this tall man, and I was looking and I was like, oh, that looks like the guy's brother. But I'm like, no, that's not him. And as I'm walking closer and closer, I'm like, it is him. So I was like so surprised and so flustered because I did not expect to see him that day. I honestly have not seen this man in 3 years, and we don't even live on the same side of town, so I really didn't have much of a reason to bump into him. But I honestly feel like his brother had orchestrated him being there that day when I was going to be there, just to like synchronize the experience. And I thought that was pretty cool how that happened. So the last thing that I would like to share is For those of you who don't know, I used to be a school bus driver. So one day I was at the eye doctor. This was actually at the end of last year. I was at the eye doctor, and I had noticed that one of the ladies who worked there was one of my old school kids' moms. So I had said hi to the little girl's mom, and I was talking to her. And as I was talking to her, she was talking about the new bus driver who had taken my place. And she kept saying that his name was Mike. And I had already known that the person who had took my place, his name was actually Dave. And I'm like, and I also didn't know of any Mike who even worked there. So I'm like, are you sure his name is not Dave? And she's like, no, his name is Mike. And I'm like, okay. So after I left the eye doctor, I ended up calling one of my friends who was a coworker who also drove school buses. So as soon as he answered, he's like, hi, this is Mike. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I was just about to ask you that. But his name is not even Mike. He was just joking around. But I'm like, I was just going to ask you, who is Mike? But I wanted to share that because it was so synchronistic. It caught me by surprise. It really threw me for a loop how all of that was synchronized, and also like the telepathy that was involved in that experience. Some pretty interesting things are like always occurring. But that's actually the end of my story. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a beautiful day.